It was as clean and as dominant of a game that you could ask for from the Jacksonville Jaguars if they win their preseason finale. We'll talk about it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for joining me here for the POSTCAST edition of the show. We are appreciative of our everydayers. We also would like to invite you to join our show wherever you get your podcast, whether that's audio or video. And we really, really do appreciate you for joining us here today. We are Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We're going to get right to it. I'm going to let you know what we're going to hit. We're going to hit the hard cuts that are come. We're not going to really specifically talk about specific cuts. We're going to actually save that for Monday's episode. As a matter of fact, all week long. We're going to reverse order here. Trevon was activated. Y'all saw what I have had a gut feeling was going to happen when I saw what kind of shape he was in and how hard he worked in the offseason. Trayvon Walker was all over the place. Trevor Lawrence was super, super sharp. First, the Jaguars dominate the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, we'll go ahead and give you the disclaimer. The Falcons didn't play any of their starters. There was no Bijan Robinson, no Grady Jarrett, and A.J. Terrell. None of those dudes. Nobody played. Kyle Pitts. But here's the thing. The Jaguars had two options. They could have played clean or they could have looked a mess. They played very, very clean. In fact, notwithstanding the parts of the game that we realized where it was all starters for like a half or close to a half, and then versus all backups, we're still going to sit. I'm going to still sit here and tell you, I can only report on what I saw, right? And what I saw was pure domination. And we can take it with a grain of salt and do whatever you want to do with it. But I do think there were some things that you could extract from this game, regardless of the fact that there were not any starters for the Atlanta Falcons. The first thing is how sharp Trevor Lawrence was. Trevor Lawrence was super, super sharp. It feels like he threw for 250 yards. He actually did not throw for 250 yards. Trevor Lawrence was 8 out of 10 for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. The most impressive part of that is he drove the Jaguars down the field with super, super efficient play. Ball popped out of his hand. And for those that have never attended a practice or didn't see a lot of training camp, when you hear me talk about how sharp he looked, that's what I saw. This is exactly what I saw when I was talking about, and a lot of people were saying how Trevor looks. Now, once again, if you're just joining me, we're taking it with a grain of salt. But they had two options, either play well or not play well, and they played extremely well. That much maligned offensive line that we spoke of, well, they were one of the reasons that Trevor was able to play well because, once again, they absolutely looked good, and it was the starters. I was a little bit worried about Ezra Cleveland for a couple of plays. And then if you notice on the left side, when ETN got loose for all of his big gains, and one of them, he could have had a touchdown. I jokingly said that he tripped on a sprinkler, but he went for 19 yards and he had another really nice cutback. Those came on the left side, and they came one time where Cam Robinson was at left tackle. And then the next time it came right in between that gap where center Mitch Morse and guard Ezra Cleveland were on the left side. So that was also equally impressive. We have seen the Jaguars have some guys that are going to play a lot on the offensive line in the past, and those players did not look good against backups. That was not the case today. I do believe that we got what we wanted to see from certain players. Travis Etienne still has the pop in his legs and looks very, very good. Trevor Lawrence was sharp. Parker Washington was sharp again. With how he played the game and the opportunity that he got. I'll give you the stats here in a few minutes. They had four catches for 35 yards. Brian Thomas Jr. got loose for a 38-yard reception early in the game that showed that he's a little bit more than a 9-route guy or a deep post guy. He actually caught a dagger and then did what he does very well, and that is run without the ball. Evan Ingram, 2 touchdowns in the red zone. Difficult catches. He's had some drops in the past, even though he had 114 receptions last week, but not this time. Evan Ingram played very, very well. Most of the starters at the skill positions, they showed you, with the exception of Gabe Davis. We did see a lot of Gabe Davis. Christian Kirk didn't play. But you see that they have multiple options. They're very, very efficient with what they want to do. Press Taylor had a real clean call game. I think it was super, super important that he was able to do that. One thing I do want to clarify, though, because I kind of was going back and forth with some people online as I was watching the game. I do believe that Doug Peterson had a plan, and he basically said that. Okay, this is one of the things you get from being around the team and in those press conferences. We try to relay as much of this information that we can. Doug Peterson had initially told us that us in the media that in week 2 the starters weren't going to play. That's because that's the week they had a joint session with Tampa, and they were going to work them real hard in practice. They were going to have some physicality in practice, and they didn't want to have a game after that week of practice. They would rather have a game on a week of practice when it was just them and them alone. They could probably get more install in, more game plan, as opposed to practicing all week with another team. So it did not surprise me that he played his starters, even though Atlanta did not. It also did not surprise me that he played them as long as they did. He played the defensive starters all the way until halftime. It did not surprise me. Here's what I think happened with that. What I believe happened with that, and we'll talk about the defense in our next segment. What I believe happened with that is this. He didn't give any contingencies on taking guys out. When he said they were going to play a half, he didn't say they were going to play a half if they didn't look good. He did not say that. He also never said that if they go out and play well early, we're just going to pull them. That eventually happened with Trevor Lawrence, but he didn't say that either. So at some point, people will complain about anything. Folks were worried about injury. After the first drive, everybody said, we've seen enough. And I was basically telling everyone, you haven't seen enough. Well, you might have seen enough, or you might think you've seen enough, but I don't think he has, because his plan was to play them longer. So the reason I think he did that, one of the things that they have to do is get into a rhythm offensively. Don't go into week 1 having guys not had game time, game experience, playing one snap after the other, transitioning from over and over from being on the sideline to running into the game after 3 and out, getting all of the things that they have to get out of their system with Press Taylor being on the sideline, all of their communication, the offensive line finally playing more than one snap together for the entire preseason. At some point, you got to get your guys greased up. If this was week 2, I don't think anybody complains about it, but it was week 3, which is the last preseason game. My thing about that is this. There used to be 4 preseason games, and week 3 was always the week that you did dress rehearsal. I can't remember the team, but in the past, there were teams where guys got hurt in the regular season early in the first couple of weeks. And one of the complaints was it was always guys that never touched the ball in the preseason. And they said, you can't do that. You can't just take them from going to practice. And because there's a difference between practice and the game, you can't just do that and then all of a sudden expect them to go out in week 1 and have chemistry. And nobody is in a position these days to give away early games. If you don't realize why, remember this. The Jaguars came down to week 17 or week 18, which was game 17, the last 2 years, and needed to win that game to get in the playoffs. Boy, I bet they would have wished they would have had one of those games that they lost early, and they can't afford to give away games and put themselves back into that position. Plus, the other thing that the Jaguars have going on is this. They're trying to establish something that is anti-complacent. They were accused by me and of a lot of people for being complacent last year and resting on their laurels. They are trying to change the attitude of the team. You have to get your players some live contact, offensively and defensively. So I applaud Doug Peterson for sticking to his trestle board and making sure that what he did was what he said he was going to do. That's because that's what he wanted to do. And folks were saying, I disagree with you, Wick. I don't know why you disagree with me. I'm not the one doing it. I'm just trying to tell you why he's doing what he's doing. So in the second half, we're going to focus a little bit on the defense. There was something that kind of caught my eye a little bit, and I was a little bit concerned, but I got some help from someone on the Locked On Podcast Network that is very familiar with Ryan Nielsen. I'll explain exactly what that is in just a second here as we continue with our postcast and our second half of the postcast, where we'll talk about the defense and some other things. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. This postcast is brought to you and sponsored by LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are actively searching for a new job, but might not be open to the perfect role, or they might be open to the perfect role with your company. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. That means you got them all to yourself. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Now, here's what you got to do. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonNFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedonNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Tonight's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, man. FanDuel has something going for you, and I'm going to tell you what it is right now. You know, you heard me talk about FanDuel forever and a day, and I'm going to keep doing it forever and some more days. But here's the difference with right now. I want you to hear this. They have something going on now through September, and it all benefits you. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account, and a current form of payment. A Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sports book. You have until September 22nd, $5 bet. That's right, $5. And you'll get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All right, back to the second half of Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. A postcast edition of the Locked On Jaguars show, special Friday night edition. Y'all ain't seen me on Friday night in a minute, if ever at all. But we're here right now, and we talked about the offense early. Let's talk about the defense. Trayvon Walker was activated. And if anyone has heard me talk this year, I said Trayvon might end up being the MVP, at least the defensive MVP or the defensive player of the year for this team. That's not to knock anybody else, Josh Hines Allen, or anybody else. What it is I think that young man is due for a breakout season. If tonight was any indication, I might be right. And if we're right, that means that Trent Baalke is going to look like a genius for seeing the future for what it is with Trayvon, who's 6'5", almost 275, 280 pounds. You saw a spin move tonight, a counter move that I had never seen before. He actually counter moved back to the inside after getting upfield, and he made a sack. Grain of salt. Once again, I will mention, I know they were playing against backups. That's all right. You still want to see it. What if they've been playing against backups and you didn't see it? Then you'd have a problem, right? So we eliminate a problem by guys going out and dominating the way that they were supposed to. A 31-0 domination, and the game appeared to be a whole bunch worse than that, right? There was one thing, though, I wondered with Ryan Nielsen, and I got this answer by Jarvis Davis, Locked On co-host up in Atlanta. Jarvis Davis said this after I questioned why, and I saw this in week 1. I didn't see it as much as in week 2 because those guys didn't play very much in week 2, but I saw in week 1 where after 3 plays from scrimmage, they rotated the entire defensive line. So then I kind of asked the rhetorical questions. Are we going to see this all year? I ain't never seen this before. I understand rotations. The Dallas Cowboys and Jimmy Johnson did it for a long time. They rotated 8 people. I have never in my life in 2 consecutive games seen a line get rotated after 3 plays. The first time it happened, there was a 3-and-out last week. They didn't come back. I thought they were done for the day. There was a 3-and-out, and they didn't come back. And then after that, they ended up back in the game. I'm like, why is he doing that? So Jarvis told me, he said, that's Ryan Nielsen. That's what he does. My point was, I know about rotations. I just didn't know that they happened that early in the game. It appears that what he does is he rotates guys very early to wake them up so that they're not over their sleep. They get used to the action. Then he goes back to a normal rotation where when he puts his starters back into the game, even if it's not all of them, mainly I'm talking about Josh and Trayvon, even when he puts them back into the game, here's what happens. They play for longer stretches then. At that point, whether it's the end of the first quarter, the early part of the second quarter, then when you're going to come in the reserves, you're not coming in with cold people. It makes very much sense to me, but I did notice that they were being rotated in and out very, very quickly early in the game. So we got to get used to that a little bit. That's another reason why I think they played a lot. This is a new defense. There's new communication. There are new rotations. They mix and match guys a lot. And I think everybody's trying to feel their way. But the thing that they're doing is because even when they switched after the 3 plays, the Falcons went to a no huddle. You don't want to get in a game and get caught doing that and get a penalty, or they get a big play on you and then they deny the penalty because you got too many men on the field. So the thing is they were working out all of these quirks with their defense, and we just happen to be able to see it live and in action. And it's a glimpse of what has to happen. They have to be ready week 1. And I don't think you can get game ready week 1 without your guys playing an extended amount of snaps where they get tired, where they have to depend on rotation and they have to pay attention to communication. You can't rehearse that in a regular season game. You don't want to cost yourself one game. One game is the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year. So understand, I appreciate Jarvis telling me that. Shout out to all y'all that slapbox with me about that online. It's okay. Don't take it personal. Now, look, all this week, we're going to talk about hard cuts, the hard cuts that are going to come for this team. And they are some hard ones, particularly the wide receivers. I thought Elijah Cooks did what he needed to do. He finally got into that end zone. He caught a contested ball. And then this little cat Trammell, man, they're going to battle it out for that. If they keep 7 wide receivers, which I doubt, if they keep 6, little Austin Trammell, man, if you got to choose it based off body types, I think they choose Elijah. If you choose it for who's been in the system longer, they're going to probably choose Elijah. I think it's going to also come down to, do they need another slot guy? Do they need a backup punt returner? Who can they maybe sneak on the practice squad? That's going to be very, very difficult. I think that's going to be interesting. I also thought Buster Brown showed up, Monteric Brown, and he looked really, really good. I think he's going to be a dude that they take a hard look at. I also thought that Yasir Abdullah was partly responsible for the sack that Trayvon got because the quarterback had to flush out because Abdullah was putting pressure on the back. And then he also got very, very close on another rush. Mason Smith, I thought he flashed, but he's not going to get cut. I just wanted to mention him because he's a rookie that I'm very, very high on. We're going to talk about risers, fallers, hard cuts that are come, and who are some of the guys that maybe they can get a little compensation for if they have to move on from them. We're going to do all of that all week. We're going to listen to the press conferences. We're going to have reaction from what Doug Peterson has to say if Trent Baalke speaks also. And I'm going to mention that nobody said anything about Press Taylor tonight. You see what happens? Ain't nothing wrong with him. They just got to execute. All right. So that was your offense coordinator calling games and the one you saw sitting over there on the sideline. We're going to discuss all of those things this week on Locked On Jaguars. We really appreciate you staying up and joining us for this postcast. I can't get the questions right now. A lot to talk about this week on Locked On Jaguars. It's your team every day, so you know we'll be here giving you the information, and we're going to give it to you straight, no chaser. We're not going to sugarcoat a thing. So make sure you join us here on Locked On Jaguars all week long, every single day as we head up and head towards cuts, final cuts. We're going to talk about some guys that I thought – I'm gonna tell you what is it. Roy Robinson Harris is one and Walker Little is the other. We're really going to have a hard conversation. I probably shouldn't say that. That's somebody else's stuff. We're going to have a tough conversation about those guys. In the meantime, enjoy your week. Enjoy the opening of college football. Make sure you tap into your favorite college football show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, make sure you check out our fantasy football show, Locked On NFL Fantasy Football. I'm going to tell you right now, man, my draft is Sunday, and there's nobody who's going to give you the best information other than the guys on Locked On Fantasy Football. So have a good evening. Enjoy the 31-0 victory, and let's hope this is all an omen for what we'll see in the coming season. You guys take care of yourself.